I remember the launch of the Nintendo Wii like it was yesterday, even though it was back on November 19th, 2006 in the US. The reason is because so many interesting things happened that day. I had mine pre-ordered at Game Crazy, went to line up there early in the morning, took a buddy of mine to Circuit City so he could pick one up, and he wound up getting screwed out of it and waited a bunch of time and couldn't get one. Eventually he did, we wound up getting him one at Target a few weeks later. But I remember picking it up, being excited, going home, and the streets were blocked off. There was SWAT team people out there. The police had everything blocked off. I'm trying to go home, and the police were like, you got to turn around. You can't come here. I'm like, oh, my God. Okay, we parked like a block away, snuck into the apartments where we lived, and running through the place. There were people with rifles out there. I was like, what's going on here? We just ran into the apartment and just locked the door and hooked up the Wii. Turned out that there was a dude that was trying to blow up the apartments, and I probably shouldn't have been there because he set the gas off and was going to blow it up after a little fight with his spouse at the time. It was crazy. It was in the news. It was in the newspapers, and yeah, I'll never forget that day. But with the Nintendo Wii, I enjoyed the system, but it was not my favorite Nintendo console, but there's things on that system that I just absolutely love to this day. There's a lot of Wii exclusive things out there, but over time, I think I was excited at first and I just kind of lost interest. You know, that generation of consoles, you had the Xbox 360 that came out the year prior. You had the PS3 that came out right around the same time as the Wii. It was saturated. There was a lot of stuff going on. First time I had a Microsoft console at the time, and yeah, I fell in love with the 360, fell in love with the PS3. And, eventually kind of died off a little bit on the Wii, but there were still games I just loved, like, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, and a lot of the WiiWare stuff. And when I think about WiiWare, I think about stuff that was stuck on that console, and the Wii shop closed in 2019, and that's a frustrating thing. Like, holy crap, you can't get any of those exclusives anymore, legally anyway. We could easily hack the Wii, and that's what I did today with a little Wii Mini, and I've hacked the Wii in the past, several different Wiis, and there's always a certain set of games, WiiWare, that I always throw on there, because I'm like, there's no other way to play these games, on, the legit system to get access to them, unless you just have the system and have those games that were already pre-downloaded on it. One of them I always think of is the Final Fantasy IV, the After Years, but at the same time, that's one that's available elsewhere, in like upgraded versions and whatnot. But there's a set of games by Konami that it baffles me. Do these people not like money? Because the Rebirth series, there's 3 games in the Rebirth series. Why haven't those been republished? Why haven't those been released on the PlayStation, the Xbox, the Nintendo Switch? Like, it's been so long. So the 3 games that were available, the first one, I believe, was Gradius Rebirth. That came out March 9th, 2009. So that's like 12, almost 12 years ago now. And no re-release in sight. Cost 1,000 Wii points. All 3 of these games that we're quickly talking about cost 1,000 Wii points. Is that like $10? I don't remember for sure. Pretty sure it's like $10. That's case like $10 for each one of these games, I think was well worth it. Like if you package them in a physical edition now, $30, $40, probably 40. I'll buy them. Like, hands down, I'll buy them. But yeah, Gradius. So Gradius Rebirth is a single-player shoot-'em-up game that essentially is a remix of previous Gradius games. You had a standard game mode with unlimited credits, play through, the whole game if you wanted, and then a score attack where you only had a single credit, and there were online leaderboards at that time. Not anymore, obviously. And you had 5 ships to choose from, and all but one stage has an original boss at the end to fight. And like most of these games we're talking about today, all 3 of them actually have remixes of previous music in those franchises. Gradius is a fun one. It's not my favorite out of these series of Rebirth games, but all 3 of these, they were developed by M2 and published by Konami, and I think they did a wonderful job with them. So the next one was Contra Rebirth, and holy crap do I enjoy this game. This one came out September 7th, 2009 in the US for 1,000 Wii points. This is a 1 to 2 player game. You had 2 characters to choose from. If you know Contra, you know what's up here. But the two characters you can initially choose from, Bill Reiser and Gembe Yagyu, I don't know how to say his name, but there was also 2 additional unlockable characters that you could get by finishing the game on easy and normal. Easy's, pretty easy for the most part. Normal, which is the way I wanted to play it, like, holy crap, man. That first stage, like, you got to get really accustomed to the game, like bullets flying. There's so much going on screen at once. It kind of gets a little difficult to pay attention to everything. And, I had some unnecessary deaths. You get used to it, but it is Contra for sure, man. You have your familiar weapons, your standard machine gun, your spread shot, you have your homing missiles and lasers. You are missing the flamethrower in this game, unfortunately. And I find, like, a lot of times I try to default to the homing missiles, but they don't do as much damage as the spread shot, but they do come in handy because they home, So not a lot of weapons here. And just like I said with the other game, uses remixed music from previous Contra games. And if you play this game and you go to the first boss fight, like, you just know, like, this game's gonna be badass, man. So, this one had a little typical story, kind of interesting, almost like, like a lot of other things, a little cliched, I guess, like as far as sci-fi action type stuff goes. But you're in the year 2633. Well, you're not really in that year. That's when it starts. The Neo Salamander forces, they travel back in time to 1973 to destroy the Contra Force while the Earth's defenses are not quite in an advanced state yet. So they just trying to get ahead of the game, apparently. Destroy them while they're not at their best, right? And you got to stop them. And there's some twists here, it's an interesting one if you care about the story, but I like these games for the action, man. But yeah, Contra Rebirth's a really good one in my opinion. Now, the one that I hear most people talk about, and I talk about it quite often as well, is a lot of people have, nostalgia for this series, just like Contra. But Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth. This one, like, these all came out the same year, but they were all spread out. This one came out December 28th, 2009 for 1,000 Wii points. M2 developed, Konami published, just like the other two. And this one's interesting. It's a remake of the Game Boy game Castlevania Adventure, but it's barely recognizable to the Game Boy original. In this one, you climb stairs instead of ropes. If you ever played the Game Boy one, you would remember them ropes. So, you have that going. You got stairs now, like your typical Castlevania. And movement's quite a bit more fluid. You can move mid-air while jumping to change direction. Kind of comes in handy. It can be a little bit of a challenging game, but overall, it's a way cleaner presentation and experience compared to the Game Boy original, but it's kind of like its own game, in my opinion. You still have the whip upgrades that you had in the Game Boy version, but you don't lose the little flame projectile when taking damage. Just has a meter when it's used up. You no longer can use it until you get the item again. And the game, just like all the others, has remixed music from previous games in the franchise. And I think that's one of the highlights of Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth is the music in the game. And the graphics look really good. I mean, a lot of things on the Wii don't necessarily hold up, but I think these games are fine. All three of them have that like nostalgia factor to them. Like, man, these are like, Super Nintendo style games type of thing, but a bit more advanced. I really wish that someday these games would get a re-release. We could easily add them, and install them on Wii hardware now through illegitimate means. But you know what? I don't care what anybody says. I do get people on my channel occasionally like, hey, you can't do that. You're always going to have those people. But you know what, man? No matter how you feel about this stuff, if a game is just no longer available and it's lost the time because they don't sell it any longer, you can't access it on the Wii any longer, and like the way the whole system was, yeah, you could go online and buy stuff and download stuff. The way account management was done back at that time through the Nintendo Wii and the Wii U, very archaic. Like, it just wasn't great. I've had to deal with Nintendo recently getting a Nintendo Network ID put back onto a Wii U, which worked out fine, but it was just like, man, the way this system works back then really sucked, So a lot of people who had access to these games may be lost forever for them. And you know what? This is the only way we can get them right now. Hack your Wii, emulate them, whatever you got to do, until they can, you know, say, hey, we're going to start selling this again. I don't care. Just find it and install it and play it. These games are awesome, man. So really do appreciate you guys. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.